what's widely quoted in the media is that businesses on average have a 7% survival rate. And for us, it's over 80, probably over 90% business survival rate.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a really great pleasure to welcome my guest at this time. Honestly, one of my favorite people within our SAB family. She is the executive director for the SAB Foundation. Please welcome Bridgit Evans.
Thank you, Sphe.
How are you, bestie?
I'm good. I'm so good. Cape Town is wet and cold, but I am good.
Well, I'm happy to have you here in Joburg. Thank you for flying up to have this conversation. I think one of the most exciting things, and in fact, just before we went live, talking about our journey working together to tell the stories of the SAB Foundation, we did so much qualitative and quantitative research that proved that a lot of people really don't know the full length and breadth of what we do. And one of the most amazing things that we do as a business that we can really all be proud of is the SAB Foundation. So I'm really excited to really get into that conversation and talk about the power of that organization. But first, I want to get into the heart behind the leader. So tell us, who is Bridgit? What was her journey? And how has she gotten to lead this incredible organization, the SAB Foundation?
Wow. Well, how much of a journey would you like to hear?
Go all the way in.
Oh, good. Okay. So I think I was always socially conscious, right, from a teenager. I had this very life-changing experience once when I was walking with a fundraiser, collecting money in Sandton for 10 kilometers. He was raising money for cancer. And this was back in like 1986 or something, so deep in apartheid. And we walked past a bus stop. We were heading to all the areas where the wealthy white South Africans would gather, Sandton City and those places, to try and I met a woman at the bus stop, and she was waiting for a bus. And we didn't even think to ask her for money because we made assumptions about who she was and her circumstances. And so we kept walking, and she came running after me, and she said to me, "What are you raising funding for?" So we told her it happened to be leukemia, and she said, "I'd like to make a contribution." And I still can't tell that story like without crying, because it was the biggest lesson I could ever have learned. Don't make assumptions about people. And I think it kind of ignited this passion in me, you know. And right from a young age, I think I came up with this kind of personal mission statement, and that is that I wanted to help people. I wanted to help people with the dignity to realize their potential.
Oh, powerful.
And so that's kind of really was my journey, right from a young girl. My career, I studied psychology, I studied entrepreneurship, and did a whole lot of things that led me to this point. But I think I've worked in socioeconomic development for a very long time. But the further down the road I got, the more I realized that I felt that entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship and innovation really held a lot of the keys to really trying to transform society. So when this opportunity came up, it was a dream opportunity for me. And that was 9 years ago.
I think that's really, really powerful, Bridgit, because for me, the work that the SAB Foundation does is actually intrinsically connected to who you are and your purpose. And I think that really, really shows in the way the foundation shows up and in the way that for about a decade, you have led the foundation to do some incredible work. Let's now switch into the foundation itself. What is the SAB Foundation and what does it do?
Well, I'm so glad you asked me that question. I really, I would love SAB employees to know about this incredible asset that they have. It's a foundation that was set up as part of SAB's Black Economic Empowerment Scheme back in 2010. And currently the foundation has around 2.8 billion in assets. And we use the interest and dividends of those assets to invest. So our annual budget's around 100 million. And we really have a very focused mandate, which is a wonderful thing because, you don't get pulled in a million different directions. Our mandate is 100% the funding of small businesses. And so that is translated into a strategy where we look at entrepreneurship. We work with around 80 entrepreneurs a year, but for 18 months. So at any one time, we have 120 entrepreneurs on our programs. But then we have another piece, which we call social innovation. And that's a very interesting field, which I would love to talk about a little bit more. I
absolutely love the Social Innovation Awards. It happens every year. I'm very cognizant of it because the end of February, I know that applications open for the Social Innovation Awards. I absolutely love the focus it has on including women, youth, and people with disabilities in economic growth and empowerment. Let's go straight into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've found in this space is unbelievably extraordinary human beings. And that has been the privilege. So when I say helping people realize their potential, whether it's the entrepreneur in a rural area, which we look at, or the social innovation, I think I'm so in love with the social innovation work, and then I meet some of the entrepreneurs, I'm in love with them. But when it comes to social innovation, it's a very unique and exciting space because ultimately what you're doing is you're backing entrepreneurs that are trying to solve big social problems in the country. And some of them are PhDs, doctors, engineers, and some of them are people in rural communities that have come up with incredibly simple answers to problems in those environments. So I'll give you an example. We have a rural delivery service, the first of its kind, which is basically alleviating that the terrible challenge that rural people have around how they fetch groceries from towns, which are 50 kilometers away, then carrying 5 kilograms of maize meal when they're elderly back to where their homesteads. And it's a business that's been really successful. They have clients. They have about 30,000 clients now.
Amazing.
Yeah, and that business is growing all the time. Their aim is 50,000, I think, by the end of this year.
Incredible.
We have a company that is trying to, they're not trying to, they have come up with an entirely new way of treating glaucoma, which causes 60% of the world's blindness.
Wow.
We've backed that business since day one. And they're in a process at the moment of registering with the FDA. And then that thing will be taken to market. It's extraordinary, And, so from healthcare to rural livelihoods to, we work a lot with people with disabilities. The cost of assistive devices is so prohibitive.
Yeah.
So we have people coming up with really affordable prosthetic legs, We have companies that only employ people with hearing disabilities. A company in Cape Town called I Love Coffee. It's a coffee shop that only employs deaf people, which is extraordinary. There's such a range of the types of businesses that we have helped through the foundation. And when you add it all up, it's the most powerful, unbelievable story. And some of those businesses have grown exponentially over this period. Where to the point where there are now big businesses addressing huge and very, very important issues in the country.
And Bridgit, that's something I want to now zoom into. There's something so powerful that happens in the foundation around the scaling of these businesses. You come in with an idea or an innovation. You come in with a business plan. And we are not throwing money. This is not your stereotypical corporate social investment kind of situation. This is real, qualitative, meaningful empowerment that develops and coaches and expands and grows and scales businesses. Talk to me about your process in the foundation and how you come alongside these business people to scale their business. And at a time where we've got our highest unemployment rate in the history of this country, the job multipliers of them becoming employers are something that you're beginning to see. What is the process you guys have at the foundation to come alongside these business owners?
So I think that's a really important piece for us. So we always say, once you're in our family, we never really let you go.
Facts.
And so we have aimed for a depth strategy. We know that especially when you're coming up with something that is a piece of innovation. When we find those businesses, often there isn't even a business there. It is just a prototype or a piece of tech. And so we walk that journey with them. We have different rounds where they can come back to us again and again so that we can take them further and further along that journey. There is a huge amount of coaching, mentoring, and skills training that happens. I think history has really taught us in this country that money actually never solves a problem. It's the strategic use of that funding.
Come on.
And that comes with a true understanding, working with a mentor to say, how can we best use these funds to accelerate the growth of this business? And so we take them through various processes with us, and they can pick up the phone and call us anytime. And I think that's what we're known for. I think people don't feel like another number or a tick box. A lot of people have my cell phone number, and with like 700 entrepreneurs, that can be a little bit taxing at times. But I love hearing from them, you know, and I think that really comes across to people. We start off very much coaching, mentoring, much more like as a friend, and then it gets more serious as the business grows. And okay, now we want to get you investment ready. And we are also never ever just work in a vacuum. We are continually working with other partners. What's interesting is a lot of our social innovation is interesting to people overseas. So they want to see our pipeline. They want to, VCs, that kind of thing, are looking at the businesses that we invest in. So it's hugely exciting. And the important thing is that we recognize that this is a journey they're on. And so we always leave the doors open for them.
I love that. And I think one of the most powerful ways you've left the doors open for our alumni in our foundation family is through this investment. I thought it was 88 million rand.
No, it is.
Okay,
it is.
good.
It is.
So 88 million rand. It is a bit confusing in the structure of the funding, but 88 million rand that we are able to give to our alumni through the SAB Foundation for scaling purposes. I think coming out of the pandemic, it has been really difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs to find growth strategies and growth funding from traditional financial institutions. Why don't you talk to us about how this 88 million rand is really going to help businesses recover from some of the losses of the pandemic and then also position them for growth?
So we have, as you know, like a lot of our funding, so we have 100 million rand a year budget, and that is very philanthropic. The intention there is really to build those businesses as far as we can. Then those businesses start to grow, and what we realized over time is that they still really struggle to access finance, as you say. And often the only finance available to them is at interest rates that are completely prohibitive. And the other challenges are things like they don't have collateral. And so what we decided, this was a logical next step for us as a foundation, is so we've built you to the point where we believe you're investable, but no one wants to invest in you yet. So what can we do as a foundation? So what we did was we collaborated with the Jobs Fund, which is National Treasury, and a fund manager called Lead Impact Capital. And we set up this 88 million rand fund. And it is almost, we are lending now to entrepreneurs at affordable interest rates.
I love that.
So we've taken them through a long process to get there. And now we're saying, okay, well, now we have to put our money where our mouth is. Okay, we've invested into you up until this point. But now, we want to lend money to you and make sure that you are not stopped on that journey because you can't access finance to go the next step. It's very challenging finance, but and it's brand new. So we only launched in Feb, and actually we did our first 4 deals 2 days ago, which is super exciting.
Amazing.
And I mean, just to give you an example, one of those businesses They do a lot of alien tree clearing, particularly in the Western Cape. When we started with them back in 2018, I think he employed 4 people. He'd only just started and didn't know how he was going to turn this into a business. He's very passionate about the environment.
Right.
His name's Sabelo. And he employs over 100 people now. And with,
Hold on, from 4 to 100.
yeah, so they all assist with the clearing and stuff like that.
Amazing.
And now with this finance that we're hoping that he is going to grow to over to 200 more people.
Wow.
Then we have a very interesting business, which is also like, you know, I have so many favorites. So don't ask me which is my favorite.
They all are.
They're all my favorites. But we have another one called Katonki, which is fascinating. So Katonki means donkey. And this is a very low-cost utility vehicle that has multiple purposes. And it is to replace like something like a tractor on farms. So small farmers can't afford tractors. And so if we truly, we are in South Africa, a lot of what's happening is you've got these massive commercial farms that have been parceled into different portions as a result of land redistribution. And so you have to find a way of making those farms successful. And big tractors are not necessary for smaller pockets of land, but you do need utility vehicles. So this vehicle it's like 130,000 Rand, and you can't believe what this thing can do. And so that organization has only just launched. We did a media article on them in January, and they started getting orders from all over the continent.
Amazing.
Yeah, and they kind of are almost like petrified now because everybody wants one. So now the finance that we've just approved is for them to be able to, because there's currently a 6-week waiting period to get a Katonki. So they want to make the process go quicker. So these are the kind of things that the foundation's doing. So exciting.
I really love that because it's not just now coming alongside and empowering, but it's also helping our entrepreneurs take advantage of these amazing opportunities to continually grow their business, to continually become employers, and to really make a real impact on the economy. I think that's really, really powerful work. Let's talk now about the 13-year journey of the SAB Foundation. I mean, you've been at the helm of this amazing organization for about a decade of that. Talk to me about that journey. Talk to me about lessons learned. Talk to me about the evolution and what you're most proud of in this decade under your tenure.
Wow. I think, the foundation really had only just started operating when I took over. So in many ways, it was almost a blank canvas, which was an incredibly exciting place to start. We had our 2 small funds, so we basically dished out funds in those days, and I think it was just experimenting. Since then, I mean, the budget was very small, under 20 million, and we all of a sudden we grew to almost 100. And so as we've grown as a foundation, it's really been implementing more and more along the continuum of entrepreneur growth, so adding more different types of programs,
right.
From real startup to growth. That's been the one piece. Then it's been adding the depth, so the level of support, the level of assistance through that journey. It's been experimenting with something that I am also very proud of, which is outside of our main programs, is some of the experimentation work that we've done with farming. So looking at how do you develop an economic model where you've got multiple smallholder farmers, where you want to try and create one big commercial opportunity through multiple farmers. So we've done that with macadamia nuts with 12 farmers in Limpopo. We've done it with cotton in Jazini. So there we basically grew from 120 farmers when we started working. There's 2,000 now.
What?
Yeah, and we've had to work with the factory as well to try and, because the ginnery where they're processing the cotton, that's what it's called, a ginnery, needed to be radically repaired. And the management needed training at the ginnery. So it's a whole very holistic thing to develop the economy in that whole area around
love
cottons.
I didn't even know that was happening.
Yeah.
Ejozini, and I'm from KZN.
Yeah. And then we do essential oils, mostly rosemary, in Kaaskammerhoek in the Eastern Cape. So we've got
Amazing.
these 3 experimental farming projects. And I've just come back from the macadamia farms where basically they were planting trees when I last went there, which was before COVID. And to go back now, what an incredible experience. And I think just to see, there was a woman there, I just have to tell you the story.
Yes.
Young woman who, she went off, got educated, and she just has this absolute passion for farming. And so she said to her dad, there's family land, she wants to farm. Well, she gets up at 4 a.m. She takes 2 taxis, it takes her 2 hours, then she walks for half an hour to get to her farm. She farms the whole day, and before we met her, she was basically having to go and fill 2-liter Coke bottles with water and take that in a wheelbarrow to her farm and then water her trees. And now she's got water. And
proper irrigation.
Yeah, we put
really
fencing, we did fire breaks. We've
Amazing.
done everything to grow that farm. And at the same time, we're developing the central marketing piece. So when those trees mature, now you've got 12 farmers, you've got a bigger selling group.
Right, a market, yeah.
And it's really around developing that.
Fantastic.
So that's some of the other work we've done. Lessons learned. So if you had to ask Boris, our lovely CEO of SAB, he would tell you that one of the things that didn't work was a rabbit farming project we did years ago. But it was another one of these attempts. I think you're never going to get 100% success rate. But I think the biggest things that we've learned is that it's always about the jockey of the horse. It's not about the horse.
I love
so
that.
in terms of the enterprises, you can back a great business. But if the entrepreneur is not committed, you don't have a business. And so for me, every year, I think I've realized that it's more and more about leadership.
Yes.
Actually, it's
And
about
unlocking
leadership.
that in the entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And so for me, selection is absolutely critical. There's a few things. Selection is critical. Like we put so much effort and resources into selecting the right people. So, with our Tilwana program, just to give you an example, our entrepreneur program, we had 7,000 applications for 70 places this year.
Hectic.
Yeah. And so we're very well known now, which is great. But it's really about finding the right people. Then I think it's a combination of consistency and innovation. So I don't know how many other funders that have funded entrepreneurship can say that they've actually kept the same consistency around service providers, partnerships, and all of that over such a long period of time. And I did that very deliberately because you're building a research case study that way.
Right.
You're building real research and understanding that way. But at the same time, you have to constantly learn and innovate and change as you realize perhaps things are not working as well as they should work. Right. So to do that, we measure impact. We're very, very big on impact measurement. We run annual surveys, and we get almost 100% of entrepreneurs complete those surveys.
Fantastic.
For us. So at any one time, we know exactly what's going on. We ask them to say, what do they like about us? What don't they like about us? So we're always improving.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah. So lessons, I think I would say some of the biggest lessons we've learned is backing the wrong people.
And I think it's beautiful then because it really sharpens the vision, it sharpens the focus, and it sharpens your how. So that we've got the right heart, we've got the right how, and we've also got the right people to partner with in order to really drive meaningful change. I think that's absolutely powerful. I think let's actually get into an impact conversation right now, because we have got, at the time of this airing, we are going to have a new SAB Foundation impact report. And there are some amazing, humongous numbers that we get to report on. One of the things I really love and continually reiterate about our business and our SAB family is that we do no fluff. Everything is data-driven, evidence-based, and has an impact report attached to it. And I love that. So some crazy numbers that I'm just going to rattle off, and then I want you to tell me what those numbers mean in English. 632 million rand deployed in grant funding, business development support, and interest-free loans. 2,979 entrepreneurs supported. That's crazy. 3,139 rural micro enterprises. A stat that really, I spoke recently at a Township Economies Summit about some of this work. This stat is one of my favorite. A 96% increase in annual turnover of business in these programs. This is not just throwing money. This is making sure that your business really performs. And what got me as a double click into that 96% is the annual turnover of these entrepreneurs across all these programs was about 500 million rand, which is ridiculous. So it's 500 million rand at inception to roughly 1.1 billion rand as at March this year. That is ridiculous. And if I look at that year on year to the year before that, it's at a very similar growth rate in the way that it's growing. Almost 6,000 new jobs sustained across these programs. Over 10,000 jobs have been created and over 15,000 people collectively employed. Make the numbers make sense. What is the key takeout for us when we see the money that is being put in, the coaching that is coming in, the power of the performance of these businesses, and the confidence boost that must be for you as an entrepreneur to become an employer, to be looking at an average of 96% turnover? What does that mean to you? What should we take out of that?
Sure. I think for me, living in a time like we're living in now, with all of our challenges, just come out of COVID, all the things, as we all know, electricity, just for businesses to survive, that for me is a big deal.
Yeah.
And so to see business turnover increase despite that is extraordinary in these kinds of times.
It really
I think, I'm very excited, to go over the billion mark is really, really exciting.
Huge.
I think what you have to remember as well in these businesses is that they're relatively young. They're young businesses. So we've been doing this for 10 years, and those businesses had just started. And obviously we're taking in more every year. So they're young businesses, they're still growing, and they are, we have seen 10,000 jobs created over this period, which is extraordinary, I think. So there's, for me, the growth is amazing. And I think what you have to do as well is look at it in the context of entrepreneurship in general, entrepreneurial development. So first of all, I have to say that one of the biggest issues in South Africa is we are putting so much money into entrepreneurship development as a country, and we are not measuring it.
Wow. So
that is why we are so fanatical about it, because how do we know whether we're actually growing businesses if we're not measuring?
Absolutely.
So the challenge for me is I can tell you what we've done. I can't tell you whether or not that's good and bad compared to someone else trying to do the same thing, because very few people are sharing that information. But what I can tell you is that what's widely quoted in the media is that businesses on average have a 7% survival rate. And for us, it's over 80, probably over 90% business survival rate. So I think that is something that's definitely worth celebrating.
I think it's more than business survival rate. I think it's more than surviving, it's thriving, it's scaling, it's getting, in some cases, international recognition. With my team, we were really big in terms of telling the stories of entrepreneurs in their local.
You've seen so many stories.
And so I've really enjoyed telling the stories of these men and women in their communities, in local media, in townships and rural areas across our country. It's really, really fantastic work that is being done. I want us now to look to the future. One of our big things at SAB is we dream big to create this future with more cheers. And I think for a lot of people watching and listening right now, I don't think they've understood that this is what beer does for South Africa. This is what beer can do to propel our country forward. What does the future of the SAB Foundation look like in your visionary eyes?
Sure. Well, I think I would like to see it continue to look at the type of innovation we've invested in, because when that does scale, you're looking at completely disruptive and way more efficient ways of addressing issues in the country. So for me, that's really critical to do more of that.
Yeah.
I think do more farming, try and bring back productivity in certain farming areas that are no longer productive.
Right.
And I think, I think one of the things as a foundation that we need to do more of is, and I was chatting to you about this earlier, is we're not just shouting about nothing now when we tell a story.
Right.
We got 9 years of track record, 9 years of experience, 9 years of lessons. And so from that point of view, I think that we need to start engaging. We do engage in some high-level discussions, but I think we need to be doing more of that. So I think what's exciting is we're getting invited into more and more rooms. To be able to share our story and to collaborate with others, government, international aid, that kind of thing. But I think we need to be doing that more, because the foundation it's doing extraordinary work, but it's also almost an incredibly powerful research study. And I think it's because of the consistency it has shown, as well as the constant innovation. So for me now, it's kind of like, how do we package that into lessons and into ways of engaging at a high level, maybe policy, that kind of thing. I mean, I think what a lot of people don't actually know is that there is a brand new business status in South Africa called a small business funding entity. And the reason that exists is because non-profit organizations were never ever allowed to be tax exempt if they were doing grants to businesses. So you could not be a non-profit and make grants to businesses. If you were a non-profit, you had to make grants to other non-profits. And so SAB Foundation, before my time, I can't take credit for this, it lobbied for new legislation to allow entities like ours that are doing donations to businesses as opposed to NPOs to be tax exempt, which is critical because, they're doing amazing work and they didn't qualify before. Now, that was an SAB initiative. You know how many companies in South Africa have now been able to take advantage of that legislation that we lobbied for?
Trailblazing and pioneering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's really powerful to actually have as much money as possible, to have as much impact as possible. Because now that we have a very strong culture of measurement and evaluation of the work, I think what's powerful about the future that I see is that once we have those insights and those ways of working and the strength of the thought leadership from the lessons learned over many, many years, a lot of our ideas, even in this incarnation of the SAB Foundation, can be scaled and adopted by other people, because it's not ultimately about us. It's really about how we move the country forward.
Absolutely.
And I think that is absolutely incredible. I want to close with 2 calls to action to SAB Foundation. And I want you to keep me correct. Every year, We have the Social Innovation Awards. The applications for that open at the end of February.
Next year,
that I've noted.
yes,
So
yes.
next year, end of February, those applications will open. That information will be on our social media platforms, both Foundation and SAB Corporate, since we are the same WhatsApp group. And then we've got the Tolwana program, which focuses on rural development.
No, it
What does it focus
focuses on entrepreneurs, any sector, any geography across
Love
the
that.
country. They just have to be operating for a year. And we opened 1st of August.
Fantastic.
Around there.
So 1st of August, people must be looking out for the Tolwana program, which is going to be opening up there. And then, of course, every year we have my favorite, which is in October, our Social Innovation Awards. And that's a really beautiful showcase of all the amazing entrepreneurs that we've been walking a journey with and that we're about to walk a journey with. And so, people can look forward to that. Where can people get more information about the SAB Foundation?
On our website, sabfoundation.co.za. And if you want to make contact with us, our contact details are there. If you want to ask questions or clarify anything, we're always available.
And also your impact reports are there.
Our impact reports are there, and you are one of the first people to see the latest stats.
I love it.
The report's not ready, but the stats are ready.
It's because we're besties. It's a thing.
It's because we're besties.
It's
That's the only reason.
So I would like to make a toast to you, your amazing team, who have really been the heart and soul of the work that happens every day. And for really helping us as a nation and even as a business reimagine what a beer company can do.
Oh.
So cheers to you, Bridget.
Cheers to that. Thank you, Sphe.
Awesome. Good quality H2O.
Only the best.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode of the More Cheers podcast. We'd love to hear from you, so please show your love, leave your comments, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and podcast. Stay sharp, and cheers till next time. The information, statements, comments, views, and opinions expressed or provided in this podcast are not necessarily those of SAB and may not be current. This podcast was recorded and is being made available solely for information purposes and is general in nature. SAB does not make any representation or warranty as to the accuracy or completeness of any of the content contained in this podcast, and listeners are referred to the disclaimer contained at www.sab.co.za.